Maybe I would act like I forgave, but I would remember. Full disrespect to Timu. I want you to do it right now. I'm not kidding. Get up. Hello and welcome to the Faded Wildflower Crochet. My name is Rachel, and today I am going to be reacting to your crochet horror stories. I asked in a few different places, threads and Instagram stories, and on my community tab here on YouTube, for your crochet horror stories. So today we are going to be reacting to a few of those different stories, and I picked kind of a variety of different scenarios. Some of them are things where we can really learn a lesson from them. Some of them we're just going to be sympathizing with the people that this happened to, and I feel like with a lot of these, you're going to be able to relate to at least some aspect of the story. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first one says, I graduated in May of 2024 and I started crocheting my junior year. I would crochet during classes all the time, and it was never really an issue until around February of my senior year. I was crocheting a Valentine's gift for my girlfriend, and one of my classmates took it upon herself to go to the office and tell the principal that I had weapons. I guess she thought that it was a needle. They put the whole school on lockdown and I got searched. They tore open my locker, tore open my book bag, and everything. When I explained to them and showed them my crochet hook, they told me that I was no longer allowed to bring it to school because it would continue to cause a scare. We were on lockdown for at least an hour. I was fuming. Oh my goodness, this is wild. I cannot believe that this happened. First of all, as someone who is a parent, I have kids in school, I understand that you really have to look out for the safety of all of the students involved. I understand doing searches periodically for weapons. I totally understand this. Do not get me wrong. However, a crochet hook, really? I could understand if you were, using the crochet hook or even like a, darning needle to poke somebody, yeah, sure, you would get it taken away. But if you were just crocheting with it or just weaving in your ends with the needle, why would it get taken away? That seems really silly. I kind of wonder, and maybe the person who wrote in the story can tell me, did the person who tattled on you, did they have it out for you? Were they jealous of you? Was it some sort of feud that you had between each other? Because that just seems kind of wild. And I feel like crocheting is common enough now. Actually, my daughter is in middle school and she said she has a friend who brings her crochet projects. So when they have free time, she crochets and she's in middle school. And so I do feel like it's becoming a lot more popular. I know that crocheting has traditionally been sort of a granny hobby, but now a lot more younger people are crocheting and knitting. And so I would feel like that this would be a lot more commonplace to where those things wouldn't be deemed as weapons. But I have heard also on airplanes and stuff, people will take away crochet hooks and knitting needles because they could be used as a weapon. But I'm really a lot of things could be used as a weapon. So, I understand it again, if you were poking somebody with it, but you obviously were not. So that is just wild to me that you were on lockdown for an hour and had your stuff searched, and that had to have been so embarrassing. So I'm so sorry that that happened to you. You guys will have to let me know if you've ever had anything like this happen before. I've never even heard of something like this happening in a school. Like I said, I've heard of it happening at an airport, people getting their projects and their crochet hooks and everything taken away from them, but never at a school. So I'm so sorry that that happened to you. Okay, so let's move on to the second one. So it was a few days before my city's Pride Festival. I planned on going and really wanted to make a filet crochet shirt out of my leftover Joanne Pride yarn. I love that yarn. I had the year before. I had the rainbow yarn and was going to use my pan yarn, which is the pink, yellow, and blue yarn for this project. I had gone over to my best friend's house and was working on it whenever I could. We both have small children, and partway through, they told me not only that they didn't think I'd be able to finish it, but that it was ugly. It made me super self-conscious about it, and I was a bit discouraged, but I pressed on and managed to finish it the night before the festival. I wore my shirt to the festival and ended up getting some compliments from others. It felt really rewarding, and I ended up happy that I pushed through and made the shirt. But still, to have my best friend, pretty much the only friend I ever see or really talk to, tell me that it was ugly and that they didn't believe in me hurt a lot. I know they typically appreciate my work, so it just really sucked, but at least people at the festival liked it too. And I did ask this person if they would send me a picture of the shirt, so I will put it on the screen. And I think it's really cute. And they included that they actually free-handed this shirt, which I thought was amazing. And so I think your friend was just wrong, first of all. But also, how upsetting. I don't think that I've ever had a friend or family member straight up tell me that something was ugly. I do have one child who will sometimes be like, are you sure that that's the right color? She's a little bit like sassy with me sometimes about like my color choices or my yarn choices or something. But to have somebody like have a best friend tell you that it was just ugly, just straight off the bat, is so upsetting. I'm so sorry that that happened. And also, I just feel like, did they ever apologize? Like, did you ever resolve this? Or is this kind of just like an unresolved thing hanging over your friendship? Are you still friends with them? I'm curious if this was like something that kind of sticks in your mind. I know sometimes with friendships, you have these sort of moments where you have these unresolved feelings. I feel like it's easier with somebody like a partner, at least for me in my life. If my husband and I have a disagreement, we will work it out and I will tell them exactly how I feel. But when it comes to friendships, I feel like sometimes it's a little bit harder to be really open with that person and tell them that it hurt your feelings and to resolve that. So I'm curious if you guys ever resolved it with each other. And I'm really glad that you ended up pushing through and didn't let their comment get you down, and that you got compliments at the festival, which again, I'm not surprised because I think it was really, really cute. So again, I'm sorry that that happened to you, and let me know if you ended up making up with this friend. Okay, so the next story is kind of similar in that it was a rejection story. So let's go ahead and read this one. Okay, so I crocheted Christmas gifts last year for all of my friends and family. By the time Christmas came around, I handed everything out. My aunt, who I'd gifted a sweater that took me months to make, which yes, I can imagine a sweater would take you a long time to make, she handed it back to me and was like, do you have anything else? I ended up just donating the sweater to a homeless shelter a few days later. I was so upset. I cannot imagine the audacity of this person to just hand your gift back to you. Can you imagine doing that to somebody? Like, that is just so rude. And especially like, I wouldn't do this with any gift. Like, I feel like we have all gotten gifts in our life that we're kind of like, thanks. Yeah. Like, I teach my children that no matter what gift it is they're getting, even if they don't like it, even if they have it already, like whatever it is, you say thank you. You say, I love it so much. You do not tell that person that you don't like it or even a hint that you might not like it. You act like you like it. Now, I'm not about lying to people, but with gift giving, I do feel like it is so personal and it's just so, especially like with a handmade gift. This is what I'm trying to say, that I wouldn't treat somebody that way over any gift that they gave me, even if I didn't like it, even if it was just kind of like, I can tell you bought this at the dollar store on the way here. I still wouldn't be rude about it. But the fact that you spent so much time on the sweater and that you made it specifically for your aunt and you like, presumably like custom made it for her sizing and everything like that. You put thought into this, time and effort, and then she handed it back to you. Like, not only did she reject your gifts, like she did it to your face. Like, I would be hurt if I found out later that they like never wore it or just was sitting in their closet or whatever. Like, I would be hurt by that. But the fact that they actually handed it back to you, that is so upsetting. I'm so sorry that that happened. My friend Shannon over on her channel did a whole video about rejected gifts. And my heart was breaking for her and for other people that this happened to, because I don't think I've ever had that happen. I have had like gifts that I've made for my kids over time. You know, they don't really play with it much anymore or something like that. Like, you know, and that's kind of understandable. But to have somebody hand it back to you, that is just so rude and so hurtful. Again, did you make up with your aunt eventually? I'm curious about all the like relationships between people in these stories. Did she end up apologizing? You know, did you forgive her? I don't know. I feel like that would be one of those things where I would hold a grudge. Like, I don't know that I would ever talk to that aunt again. So I don't know. If you forgave her, you're a bigger person than me. Maybe I would act like I forgave, but I would remember. I would remember in my brain. If they ever tried to give me a gift, you better be a really good gift. Like, is she a really good gift giver? Because she must be, to hand back a handmade sweater. Or is it a case of like she only likes expensive things and the fact that you didn't spend a lot of money. Although, like, people don't understand how expensive yarn is, and to have enough yarn to make for a sweater, you know. So I wonder if she is one of those kind of like, she only cares about expensive gifts. So anyways, I'm just sorry that that happened, and let me know how you're doing now. So I chose this next story because I feel like we can all learn something from it, because it is just a scam that I had just really never even thought to consider. So let's go ahead and read this one. When I first started to crochet, I went on Facebook Marketplace to buy yarn. I got scammed but didn't realize it until months after. The seller was selling over 50 balls, skeins, and hanks of yarn. 50, that's a lot. I thought it was a good deal at the time because I didn't know much about different types of fiber, brands, or costs. The first flag should have been that most of the yarns didn't have tags. The ones that did were all major brands like Lion Brand, Bernat, etc. The second should have been that the ones that did have tags had been scotch taped around the yarn. And the third should have been that the yarn quality did not resemble the brand quality. And this is how I realized that the seller most likely purchased cheap knockoff yarn and replaced the tags with higher quality yarn brands like Lion Brand. I've learned my lesson and no longer purchase from Facebook Marketplace. Only in store and online for me now. So like I said, I really just did not even consider this scam. I'm a pretty sensitive person to scams. Like, I always kind of have my radar out. Like, is this person trying to scam me? But this is just one that I would have never really thought to even look out for, because they had labels on some of them, but they were scotch taped. I wonder if you could tell in the photos, because I feel like people could easily kind of hide that. Like, you put the tape on the underneath side so that you can't tell that it's taped on there. And I know even like sometimes I buy yarn from Joann and it'll have tape on there because it was obvious that like somebody else, like a customer, messed it up and they like taped it back. So this is something that like wouldn't even necessarily, even if I did see the tape, depending on how well it was taped on there, I guess, I wouldn't even register that. But also you could hide the tape in photos. This person is saying that this is when they were brand new, so they may not even really know. Like, I would be able to tell, I feel like at this point, if I see a label that says like Bernat Velvet, for example, and I look at it and I'm like, that's not Bernat Velvet, because I know all the colors of Bernat Velvet. I know what texture to look for Bernat Velvet, for example. And so I'd be able to tell. But if you're brand new to crocheting or knitting or whatever, and you just aren't that familiar with different yarn brands, then I feel like this would be a really easy one to fall for. And I feel really bad for them. I don't know. This is one of those scams that feels like way too much work to me on the other person's end of like, you had to buy all of this cheap yarn from presumably Temu or something like that, and you get it in. Or although I always say Temu wrong. It's Temu. Temu? That just doesn't sound right coming off of my mouth. I want to say Temu. And so I'm going to keep saying Temu because I don't care if I pronounce her name wrong. Full disrespect to Temu. No offense if you shop there. I just do not agree with their brand ethics and a lot of the things that go on. If you're curious, I will link some videos in the description about Temu's policies and like things that they get away with. It's not great. But anyway, so presumably this person bought yarn from Temu, and then they get all of this yarn in, and then they have to put the labels from other yarn onto these knockoff yarns, and then they have to take the photo, and then they have to like meet up with this person to give them the yarn. Like, that's just way too much work for me. Like, for a scam, I'm like, how much money did you pay? The person did not say. If you're comfortable, if this was your story and you feel comfortable, let me know how much you paid for 50 skeins of yarn, because if you thought it was a good deal, I'm curious how much that was. And then like, how much profit did this scammer get from all of that work? I mean, it's not that much work, obviously, but it's just like, I would never go through that much effort to make like a few dollars. I mean, first of all, it's wrong to scam people, but second of all, it's like, are you really getting that much profit from this? I don't know. That's where my mind went when it came to this, but be sure to keep an eye out, you guys, on Facebook Marketplace or any sort of secondhand place. I feel like you could get away with this even on like eBay and stuff like that. I've never bought yarn from a secondhand place like that besides a thrift store in person where I could actually see it. But I've never bought secondhand yarn. I actually was considering it. Before I read this story, I had been looking through some of my local listings just to see what they had. And I didn't actually end up purchasing anything, especially because with Facebook Marketplace, you have to meet up with somebody. I know sometimes you can do like porch drop-offs and stuff, but meeting with a stranger in person just always sounds a little like sketchy to me. I don't like it very much. But anyways, if you are shopping at any sort of secondhand place, be sure to keep an eye out for this scam because like I said, I never would have considered this to be something that somebody would even go through the effort of doing. So anyways, let's all be careful online when you're buying yarn. That's all I'm going to say. Okay, so the last one of the user submitted stories that I'm going to read today is this one right here. And then I am going to actually share my own crochet horror story as the last story of the day. Okay, so this one says, it might sound extremely silly, but earlier this year, I had to go to the ER, so the emergency room, for a crochet-related injury. Bad posture, tight tension, and extremely long crochet sessions. I have a hard time saying that. Crochet sessions. I had to repeat that like 5 times. Oh, goodness. And extremely long crochet sessions without breaks made for a pretty painful situation. Oh my goodness. It took me a bit to recover from it. I laugh about it now, but from here on out, I will always preach the importance of taking care of your body. I'm reading this one because I do feel like this is like a cautionary tale for so many crocheters that we just really want to like get cozy, put on a show, like binge watch a whole season of a show, have our crochet, have our like snacks, and have everything all like nestled in, especially this time of year as it's starting to get cooler. The nights are getting longer. You really just want to settle in and just crochet for hours. It is not good for your body. It really is not. I'm actually planning on filming an entire video about all of the ergonomics of crochet, how to prevent pain, how to deal with pain if you already have some. And I feel like it is really just so important to take care of our bodies. I cannot believe this person ended up in the ER. I'm so glad that you're okay now and that you're still able to crochet. But I hope you're taking breaks. I hope you are stretching and all the things. And like I said, I am going to be making a whole video on this, but I want this to right now be a warning to all of you who are, if you're crocheting right now, and you have been crocheting for more than 45 minutes, I want you to do it right now. I'm not kidding. Get up, stand up, and do some stretches. So important. It's so important to take breaks. It's so important to do stretches. And like I said, I'm going to give you an entire video here soon of so many different tips that are going to help you. But I do feel like so many people just forget about our bodies, and we are thinking about our minds and how much crocheting can relax us. And I feel the same way. I love having something to do with my hands, but it is just so important to pay attention to our bodies as well. And you're not going to be able to continue long-term in your crocheting journey if you have to be stopped by pain. So take this as a cautionary tale and make sure you are stretching, make sure you are taking breaks, and just take care of yourselves a little bit. Okay, so for my last horror story for the day, I'm actually going to be sharing my own story. So I started selling on Etsy 12 years ago, and I've always sold a lot of custom work. Now I do kind of more replicas of people's pets. Speaking of pets, mine is sighing right now. So I take a picture of people's pets and then I make them a plushie of it. But years ago, when I first started out, I would come up with the design myself, and then people could come in and choose the colors for that design, and then I would make it for them. So I had this one design that was a dinosaur, a baby dino, as I called it. And it had these felt eyes, and I designed it myself, completely designed it myself. And I know it's not the most unique, like revolutionary design ever, but I did come up with the felt eyes, and I did play with like some different ways to do the felt eyes, and I settled on what I did. And this design used to be a bestseller for me. I used to sell so many of these, and people thought it was really fun. They could come and change the colors of the spikes and the eyes and everything like that. But I had to eventually stop selling it because other people were replicating it for their own Etsy shops. So I did actually end up confronting one person that was doing this. And I just kind of said, hey, this is my design. And, I'm also trying to sell it here on Etsy, and you're selling it for cheaper than me. And that just feels kind of wrong to me. And they actually admitted that they had seen the picture of my dinosaur and they admitted that it was they saw my photo. They're like, oh yeah, I saw your design on Pinterest and I didn't realize that you were also selling on Etsy. I just was inspired by that. And so I created my own listing on Etsy. And like I said, they were selling it for cheaper than me. So they, I think, did end up actually taking it down. But I remember looking through their shop and it was kind of all the same thing. And they also had a lot of like copyright, like crochet characters, which I have a whole video on why that is a risky thing to do. But they did admit again that they had seen my picture. And of course, they still had to have like freehanded it, like figured out how to do that design. But they did admit that it was my photo that they were essentially copying. And I do feel like this is kind of a tricky thing because it's not exactly copying from like a pattern. Like let's say that you buy somebody's pattern, you copy and paste it and you sell it, like that's wrong. And you know, you can get in legal trouble for that because most people when they're selling a pattern say, do not replicate this. Like this is my own copyright. I say that in my patterns. So that is very like legally wrong. You cannot do that. You cannot just take somebody's pattern word for word. But when it comes to a plushie design, like they did admit that they used my photo and then they made their own, but it wasn't like based on a pattern or anything like that. So I do feel like because it's not like a replicated pattern, like one for one, legally, I don't know if they could get in trouble for it, but morally, it feels icky to me. And this is something that I'm actually doing research on right now of like what constitutes as copying, what is copying and what is inspired by. And I want to do a whole video on that and just sort of the implications of what it's like to have a design. Again, I have personal experience of what it's like to have a design replicated and then sold. And again, is it legal? Probably. Is it morally gray? Is it morally kind of yucky? I think so. So stay tuned for that video because I do feel like it is going to be really interesting because these kind of accusations happen all the time where people are like, you copied my pattern. And someone else will say like, no, this is just kind of a basic thing. Like I didn't actually copy you. But this person, like I said, did actually admit to copying me, but does it count as copying? I don't know. So let me know in the comments what you think about this or what kind of questions you have about copying in the crochet community, because I do feel like it's going to be a really interesting video to research. So actually just earlier this year, I decided to take that dinosaur and turn it into a pattern that you can buy on my Etsy shop, including the cute felt eye. So if you're interested, I will link that down below. But it kind of felt like a moment of like reclaiming this, like, you know, it's not, again, the most unique design in the whole wide world, but I know that I came up with that 12 years ago, and I can even show you a photo if I can find it. I'll have to scroll really far back on my Instagram, but I can show you that I have photos that I made of this plushie design. It's kind of changed a little bit over the years, but I designed that so long ago, and now it feels good for me to have that pattern on my shop. So if you're interested, like I said, I will link it down below. Thank you so much for watching today's video. You'll have to let me know, do you have a crochet horror story? Be sure to leave it down in the comments below, and we can all be kind and supportive to each other in the comments down below. Thank you to everyone who submitted stories for today's video. I'm sorry I wasn't able to get to all of them, but if you guys really like this video, let me know, and then I can maybe do a part 2. If you did like today's video, be sure to hit the like button. You can subscribe, stick around. Let me know what other kind of videos you want to see next. You can join my Patreon, where you get an exclusive pattern and a bonus video once a month for only $5. You can check out my Etsy shop, where I sell patterns as well as custom plushies. You can follow me on Instagram, which is The Faded Wildflower. And thank you again for watching. I'll see you next time.